She said I would rather die than have children with you. Why would anyone want to replicate such mediocrity? When I mentioned wanting kids someday while holding our friend's baby, I said nothing, just handed the baby back and left. 3 years later, she showed up at my daughter's birthday with an apology and children's books. She admitted she had been cruel because she was terrified of being ordinary, while I had found extraordinary happiness in the mediocre life she had mocked. I need to get this whole story out because what happened that night changed everything, and I am still processing how her words led me to the life I have now. Back then, I was dating Harper for about 2 years. We worked in tech. I am a software engineer at a mid-sized company. She did marketing for a trendy startup that sold sustainable fashion. On paper, we seemed compatible. Both career-focused, both liked traveling, both lived in the city. We had this nice one-bedroom in Capitol Hill, split the rent evenly, took turns cooking dinner. But looking back now, I realize I spent most of that relationship trying to earn her approval. She had this way of making subtle comments that left me second-guessing myself. Like when I would get excited about a coding project, she would say something like, "That is nice, babe," in this tone that made it sound boring. Or when I would suggest we visit my parents for the weekend, she would sigh and say, "I guess we can do the suburban thing again." The breaking point came at my friend Mateo's house on a Saturday evening in October. He and his partner Quinn had just had their daughter Ava, who was maybe 8 months old at the time. They had invited us over for dinner to meet the baby and help them with some meal prep since new parent life was completely overwhelming them. Quinn looked exhausted but happy, and Mateo kept taking pictures of everything Ava did like she was performing miracles. I have always been good with kids. Something about their curiosity and the way they see the world without any filters just clicks with me. When I was younger, I used to babysit my cousins all the time, and my mom always said I was a natural. When Ava started fussing during dinner, Quinn was trying to eat her first hot meal in weeks. I offered to hold her so everyone could actually finish their food. She settled right down in my arms, just looking around with those big eyes babies have. I guess I got a little lost in the moment. Mateo was telling us about how Ava had started trying to clap her hands, and I found myself saying something like, "Man, I cannot wait to experience this stuff myself someday." Being a dad has always been one of my biggest dreams. The table went dead quiet. Harper looked at me with this expression I had never seen before, like pure disgust mixed with embarrassment. Then she said, and I will never forget these exact words, "I would rather die than have children with you. Why would anyone want to replicate such mediocrity just like that?" In front of our friends, while I am holding a baby, the silence was deafening. Quinn's fork actually stopped halfway to her mouth. Mateo looked like he wanted to disappear. I felt my face go hot and this weird ringing in my ears started. I handed Ava back to Quinn as gently as I could manage, grabbed my jacket, and walked out. Didn't say goodbye, didn't make excuses, just left. Harper followed me to the car, acting confused about why I was upset. "Noah, come on. You are being dramatic. I am just being honest about where I am right now with kids." But it wasn't about kids, it was the word mediocrity, like my entire existence was something to be ashamed of. I drove home in silence while she kept trying to explain herself. "You know, I am focused on my career right now. We never seriously discussed timelines. You cannot expect me to get excited about something we haven't planned." None of that addressed what she would actually said. None of it explained why she had chosen to humiliate me in front of people I cared about. When we got back to our apartment, we had been living together for about 6 months. I told her I needed some space to think. She rolled her eyes and said I was being overly sensitive and that couples should be able to speak honestly with each other. That night, lying in bed next to her while she scrolled through her phone like nothing had happened, I started connecting dots I had been ignoring for months. The way she had wrinkled her nose when I talked about work stuff with genuine enthusiasm, like when our team successfully launched a new feature I had worked on for weeks. How she had changed the subject when I mentioned wanting to visit my parents more often because I missed family dinners and my dad's terrible dad jokes. The time she told her friends I was sweet but not particularly ambitious right in front of me at her company's holiday party, while I was standing there holding her coat. There was also the way she talked about other people's life choices. When our neighbor mentioned she was pregnant with her second kid, Harper had rolled her eyes and said some people just have no imagination. When Mateo first told us Quinn was expecting, Harper's reaction was, well, there goes their social life forever. She had this pattern of dismissing anything that looked like traditional happiness as somehow beneath her. The next morning, I found myself looking at apartment listings. Update 1. Posted 3 days later. Thanks for all the responses. Honestly didn't expect this to blow up like it did. Reading your comments helped me realize I wasn't crazy for feeling hurt. So Harper and I had the talk yesterday. It went about as well as you would expect. She came home from work Tuesday evening around 7 p.m., acting like nothing had happened, talking about how her boss was being unreasonable about their Q4 campaign timeline, and asking what I wanted for dinner. She had stopped at Whole Foods and bought ingredients for the salmon dish she knew I liked, which felt like her way of smoothing things over without actually addressing anything. When I brought up what she had said at Mateo's, she literally sighed and set down her wine glass like I was being exhausting. Noah, I already explained this Sunday night. I was just being realistic about our situation. We are not ready for kids. Emotionally, financially, logistically. I don't understand why you are making this into such a big thing when we both know having children right now would be a mistake. I asked her if she understood that calling me mediocre in front of our friends was hurtful, regardless of her feelings about children or timing. That is not what I meant, and you know it. I meant it would be mediocre for us to have kids right now given where we are in our careers. You are twisting my words because you want to be the victim here. But that is not what she said. I remember exactly what she said because it has been playing in my head on repeat for 3 days straight. Why would anyone want to replicate such mediocrity? Those were her exact words, and they weren't about timing. I told her I had been thinking about getting my own place for a while. Her whole demeanor changed immediately. Over this, Noah, you are being ridiculous. So I am not ready to play house, and suddenly, I am the villain. You knew I was career-focused when we started dating. The gaslighting was incredible. She kept insisting I was putting words in her mouth and looking for reasons to be upset. When I mentioned the pattern of her dismissing things that mattered to me, she said I was keeping score and being petty. Then she tried a different approach, started talking about how relationships take work and we are good together and don't throw away 2 years over one misunderstanding. But here is the thing. I realized it wasn't a misunderstanding. She meant exactly what she said. She thinks I am mediocre, and she has probably thought that for a while, I am staying at my parents' place for the rest of the week while I figure out logistics. Harper's been texting me constantly, alternating between apologies and accusations. I am sorry if you misunderstood what I meant, followed by I cannot believe you are willing to end our relationship because I don't want kids right now. She is still missing the point entirely. Moving out is going to be complicated since both our names are on the lease, but I called the landlord and we can work something out. Harper's already recruited her friends to help her process this, aka tell her she is right and I am overreacting. Fine by me. The weirdest part is how relieved I feel, like I have been holding my breath for months and can finally exhale. Update 2 posted 6 weeks later. Quick update since some of you asked me to follow up. Moving out was a nightmare. Harper kept trying to negotiate what I could take, like my own books and furniture were somehow joint property now. She had her friends there for support, which really meant so they could make passive-aggressive comments about how I was abandoning her. Her friend Jessica kept saying things like, Harper's just processing this differently than you are and maybe you should consider couples therapy before giving up. I kept it simple, took my stuff, left everything we had bought together, paid my portion of the lease until she could find a roommate. Done. The worst part was Harper's social media campaign afterward. She posted vague things about growing apart and different life goals, which was fine. But then she started telling mutual friends that I had gotten obsessed with having kids immediately and chose imaginary children over a real relationship. That stung because it made me sound unreasonable. A few people reached out asking what happened, and I just said we wanted different things. I didn't see the point in relitigating the whole thing. But honestly, best decision I have made in years. I moved back in with my parents temporarily, which was humbling at 29, but they were amazing about it. My mom just hugged me and said, "We never liked how small she made you feel." Turns out it was obvious to everyone except me. I started seeing a therapist, mostly to understand why I had stayed in a relationship where I constantly felt like I wasn't good enough. Turns out I have got a pretty solid pattern of trying to earn love instead of expecting to be loved as I am. Started doing things I had given up during the Harper years without even realizing it. Went back to rock climbing at the gym near my parents' house. Harper had always said it was juvenile, and what is the point of risking injury for a hobby? Started cooking again, actually experimenting with recipes instead of just ordering takeout because Harper preferred the convenience. Began reading fiction again. Harper had this thing about fiction being escapist and not practical for personal growth. The biggest thing was therapy. My therapist, Dr. Martinez, helped me understand that I had developed this pattern of earning love instead of expecting to be loved for who I already was. Apparently this started way back in childhood. I was always the good kid who tried to keep everyone happy, but it had gotten worse in romantic relationships. About 6 weeks ago, I was at this little independent bookstore downtown called the Reading Nook, looking for a birthday gift for my mom. I overheard a woman on the phone with what sounded like a worried parent. She was speaking so gently, saying things like, "It is completely normal for him to be nervous about the new teacher. Have you tried the transition book I mentioned? Why don't you have him bring in his favorite stuffed animal tomorrow for comfort?" When she hung up, I complimented her patience. We started chatting about books, work, life. Turns out she is an elementary school teacher named Eliza 30 who teaches 2nd grade. We talked for nearly 2 hours about everything. Favorite books, travel stories, what we wanted out of life. When the topic of family came up, she mentioned wanting a big, chaotic, happy family someday, with kids' art all over the fridge and family game nights and the whole beautiful mess of it. I didn't feel like I had to hide that I wanted the same thing. I didn't feel like I had to apologize for wanting something so ordinary. We have been dating for about a month now. She is nothing like Harper. She actually seems to enjoy the things that make me who I am. When I told her about my climbing, she asked if she could come watch sometime. When I mentioned I like cooking, she asked if I would teach her to make risotto. It is weird how easy it is when someone actually likes you. I know it is early, but I am optimistic in a way I haven't been in years. Sometimes, the worst thing that happens to you clears the path for the best thing. Final update, posted 5 years later. This will probably be my last update on this situation, but I wanted to share how things turned out since this community was so supportive during a really difficult time. Eliza and I got married 8 months ago. Small ceremony, just family and close friends. Mateo was my best man, and yes, baby Ava, now a chaotic 3-year-old, was the flower girl. Our daughter Mia was born 6 weeks ago. I am writing this at 3 a.m. during a feeding, and I keep thinking about how Harper once called my desire for fatherhood mediocre. There is nothing mediocre about watching your child discover the world. Nothing mediocre about those tiny fingers wrapping around yours or the way she looks at me like I am the most important person in her universe. Yesterday was Mia's 6-week birthday, and we had a small celebration with close friends and family. I was outside getting something from the car when I saw Harper walking up our front path with a gift bag. My heart rate definitely spiked. We hadn't spoken since the breakup 3 years ago, though I had heard through mutual friends that she had been through some changes, therapy, job switch, some personal growth stuff. She looked nervous when she saw me. "Hi Noah. I know this is unexpected. I was hoping I could speak with you for a minute." I told Eliza what was happening. She was incredibly cool about it, just said, "Take your time. I will be inside." And Harper and I sat on the front steps. She would brought books for Mia, really thoughtful ones, not just random baby books, Goodnight Moon, Where the Wild Things Are, The Very Hungry Caterpillar, books that would matter in a few years. Then she said she owed me an apology that was 3 years overdue. "I was cruel to you that night at Mateo's house, and I was cruel during our entire relationship. I spent so much time trying to be interesting and unique that I convinced myself being mean made me special somehow. I made you feel small because I was terrified that I was small, that I was ordinary, that I would disappear into some suburban life and never matter." She told me she had been in therapy for 2 years now, working on what her therapist called her superiority complex. She had realized that her fear of being basic or mediocre had turned her into someone genuinely unkind and ultimately very lonely. The truth is, Noah, everything I mocked you for wanting, a family, a simple life with someone who loves you exactly as you are, doing work you find meaningful, even if it is not flashy or impressive to other people, those are actually beautiful things. They are the things that make life worth living. I was too insecure and too afraid to see it then. She paused, looking down at her hands. I have been dating someone for about 6 months now. He is a high school history teacher, and he is kind and steady and wants kids someday too. When I told him about you, about what I said to you, he was horrified. He said I owed you an apology not just for me, but for him too, because he couldn't respect someone who would treat another person that way. It was the first real apology I had ever gotten from her. Not "I am sorry you felt hurt, but I was wrong, and I hurt you intentionally, and that was inexcusable." I thanked her for coming and for the apology, told her I was glad she was doing better and working on herself, but I also made it clear that while I accepted her apology, I wasn't interested in rebuilding any kind of relationship. She understood completely, said she wasn't looking to reconnect, just to make amends for how she had treated me. When I went back inside, Eliza was nursing Mia and asked how it went. I told her about the apology, and she said, "Good for her for doing the work to get there. That takes courage. That is my wife. She can find something generous to say about almost anyone. As I am sitting here in the dark, listening to my daughter's little sleeping sounds, I keep thinking about how different my life might have been if Harper hadn't said what she said that night. Would I have stayed in that relationship longer? Would I have kept shrinking myself to fit her vision of who I should be? In a weird way, her cruelty was a gift. It forced me to see that I deserved someone who celebrated the things I wanted instead of mocking them. The mediocre life Harper was so afraid of. It is pretty extraordinary from where I am sitting. Midnight feedings with my daughter, weekend climbing trips with my wife, Sunday dinners at my parents' house, quiet evenings reading together on the couch. Harper spent so much energy trying to avoid being ordinary that she missed out on how beautiful ordinary can be. I hope she finds her version of happiness, but I am grateful every day that it is not my job to help her find it anymore.